Chapter 16. It's 2005 and shortly after the assassination attempt aboard Captain Hope's. Sunrise sees fluffy wisps of mist dissipate from the mud-green canal's surface. Benjamin hops from the boat and deftly avoids a slippery landing. He is followed, strangely canine-like, by his feline companion. Clutching a black umbrella and a pair of red driving gloves, the boat's captain inhales a deep morning breath. Moments later, the companions enter a small parking area, demarcated by a rusting fence topped with razor wire. The loose stone underfoot makes it tough going for the cat. Even so, he manages to navigate glistening Germanic machinery before leaping onto the bonnet of a faded red Jensen, half covered with leaves and mildew. Benjamin pulls on the first gate's twin. The jangling of huge metal security chains disturbs the morning's peace. In spite of his build and his apparent years, Benjamin jogs lightly across to the old English soft top, where Platypus now waits, sphinx-like, on the sagging roof. Benjamin opens the driver's side door, only for a ginger blur to bound onto his upper back and then down into the car. Within seconds, the cat has curled up on one of a series of fur-covered cushions strewn across the rear seats. Benjamin takes a dirty sponge from the glove box and drags it across the windscreen, smearing green slime and relocating leaves so that they rest on the car's wiper blades. Too hot for this. He opens the trunk and gently places his gold-tipped umbrella and a carefully rolled-up cashmere coat inside. Then, flexing the tips of his fingers, he sends the boot flying closed with a healthy thunk. He moves to the side of the car and slides in, his legs swinging in tandem with the doors closing. Wincing, he replaces the slimy sponge in the glove box. Let's fire the old girl up. Benjamin turns one of a series of similar-looking keys in the ignition. The keys and a small gold anchor are attached to a worn, Geronimo-headed silver dollar, with a hole drilled through it. Something under the car's hood emits a painful squealing sound. Benjamin persists. You can do it! The engine finally turns over. There is a belch from one of the exhausts and then a continued unsteady burble. He carefully dons his red leather gloves. Settle down, we won't move until you're ready. Benjamin waits. As I always say, Mr. P, patience is power. The sound finally becomes a low, pulsating hum. Platypus, seemingly undisturbed by the vehicle's idiosyncrasies and those of his owner, is asleep in the back. They pull away slowly, leaving a trail of blue smoke and a large patch of deep black oil. Just under an hour later, the duo turn onto a small suburban crescent towards the outskirts of London. The car mounts the curb, lazily dropping its underinflated front tyre back down onto the road as it comes to a stop. Platypus raises his head, stretches and curls up again. The suburban peace is being shattered, not just by a 7.2-litre V8 engine coming to a whirring halt, but also by a relentless bass originating from a nearby house that vibrates up through the concrete and car's leather seats. As if the two sources of audio violence were in some way connected. No more than a second after the car belches its way to silence, the pounding beats cease too. Back soon, my friend. Benjamin somewhat limbos out of the car and, removing his gloves, heads towards an old-fashioned, battered and chipped cherry-coloured door. What at some stage was clearly a grassy area at the front of the house is strewn with discarded spray cans and variously sized motorcycle and bicycle parts. Grass is only notable now due to its scarcity. At the garden's centre, a large rotting cover has been thrown over what looks like the extremities of machinery. Benjamin stops, looks skyward and whispers. We had something like this, didn't we? He reaches into his pocket and cups thick, cold metal. Once at the door, Benjamin notes a faded scrawl on a ragged piece of sun-bleached paper. It is taped across a cracked, transparent plastic box that houses a once white bell. A single scribbled word is just discernible. Knock. Economical as ever, but no matter. There isn't a doorway in existence that won't give up its secrets to this Lord of the Seventh Seal. Despite the grandeur of his statement, Benjamin taps lightly at one of the front door's mottled panes. A few moments later the door squeaks open, just enough for an eye and big hair to be visible.
Thought I'd recognised your code. Anyway, you must be the only one around here that doesn't try to let themselves in.
The door is closed. There is the sound of metal scratching on metal. The door creaks open again, more fully this time.
I hope I'll be treated to the good uncle version today.
A petite young woman, at most a teenager, dressed in a somewhat revealing dressing gown, reaches out and, with her hands and forearms dirty as a hard-working mechanic's, bear hugs the man before her. Frizzy dark hair endows Benjamin with what looks like a sudden growth of beard. Still gripping on, she leans to one side of him and focuses on the wide chunk of metal in the street.
Why is it you always have to get up so early, Unc? Like 4 o'clock in the morning or something?
Perhaps to teach 5 a lesson.
The old 8 cylinder's still going then?
That's no way to talk about platypus. She looks up at Benjamin, smiles and shakes her head. And I see your bell's out of order. Strange for someone so adept in the world of electronical jiggery-pokery.
It does its job.
You're saying its real job isn't to alert you to someone at the door, then?
Exactly.
Benjamin gently breaks Maggie's embrace and gestures towards the discarded spray paint cans. The graffiti's getting worse, Maggie May. He pauses, trying to look beyond her hair and into her eyes. Isn't it a worry that people will start blaming you?
Keep on finding those out here, Unc. Given up throwing them away. No matter what I do, they seem to find their way back. Step inside. I'll throw some gear on. Don't tell me you're just dropping by for a cuppa.
Benjamin remains on the doorstep for a moment, eyeing the tags sprayed onto various parts of the house frontage and boundary wall. Finally entering, he navigates more motorcycle parts, circuit boards, a row of battered, mostly purple Dr. Martens, and a range of dusty piled and tangled gaming consoles that almost fill the hallway. He presses the kitchen door open. Unsurprisingly, it too has little room for manoeuvre, and Benjamin finds himself squeezing through a narrow gap, doing his best not to dislodge the mountains of computer games. Stumbling on some controllers, he finds himself with a tall and particularly retro-looking cream-coloured refrigerator to his right. He stares intently at a picture on the appliance's top. Its frame stands near an old toaster and is flanked by 2 red and white toy robots. There are dark brown crumbs everywhere. Benjamin picks up the frame and uses his free hand to brush the most significant of the detritus towards him. He places the photo back on the surface and scoops the debris into his other hand, looking for somewhere to dispose of it. As he surveys the rest of the kitchen, bar the remnants of burnt toast, Benjamin cannot identify a single item of proper food. On closer inspection, here too, all available surfaces are covered with motorcycle or electronic paraphernalia, or the occasional dust-covered model kit. Benjamin goes to examine the sink, but is interrupted, perhaps fortunately, by Maggie slipping through into the kitchen. He scrunches his hand into a fist.
I was just getting around to tidying up my Neo projects when you arrived, Unc. Honest.
Neo? Maggie, it's even worse than last time, which wasn't long ago. Isn't at least one of your aunts calling on you regularly? Maggie suddenly becomes utterly expressionless. as though having fallen into an all-consuming daydream. Benjamin stares at her. Surprisingly, given the unblinking intensity of her uncle's gaze, she remains unresponsive. Seconds pass.
Maggie May, whatever am I going to do with you? Right, follow me. I have a slight conundrum I believe your company may help shed some light on. Assuming you can spare the time.
Maggie jolts back to awareness, adhering to her uncle's request as though nothing ever happened.
Just for once it'd be nice to see you when you don't want me for tech support. I know you got me into making stuff, but I didn't think I'd be repaying that favour for the rest of my life.
Benjamin stalls.
You're not blaming me for your obsession with making things, especially messes, I hope. If we're going out, I need to grab my other phone, my shades and art. Just a few bits. Why you can't be without all this technology for 5 minutes is beyond me. Don't tell me it's to enable you to listen to any more of that terrible racket that fortuitously abated upon my arrival. Maggie is now clutching 2 phones in her left hand. Both are small, but one is truly tiny. She has already secreted away something that looks like a cross between a narrow-legged octopus and a mini-cylindrical speaker into a bulging inside pocket. Hey, just because you've got last millennium's tastes, don't be dissing Mad Villain. Mad Villain? Well, those sounds were certainly bordering on criminal. Maggie kisses her teeth. Less of that old man jokes, Unc. Any more like that and I'll have to start calling you Grandad.
Benjamin fails to contain a smile before moving stealthily like an unlikely ninja the length of the hallway to the front door and out onto the property's front path. Maggie follows, phones wedged under an arm, sunglasses nesting in and on her big hair, and unceremoniously donning silver sneakers.
Not my first choice of footwear, but at least they're clean and aren't covered with the designs daubed across those boots. These are spankers. Got 'em at the market. Just like 300 sheets Gucci's, but only 25. With a B instead of a G. Love my Gucci's. Almost as much as my Docs.
Maggie taps the hallway 3 times with the tips of her fingers, glancing left, right, and skyward, before slipping a chunky silver watch with a large green face and bezel into her jeans and pulling a black cotton bandana from her jacket pocket. She struggles to drag the bandana down over her puffy mass of hair, until finally it rests at her neck. Being the last to leave the house, Maggie slams the door behind her. She immediately heads for an outside faucet and does what she can to remove some of the oil and dirt from her hands and arms. Wiping her wet skin against the back of her skinny, distressed black jeans, she reaches into the trouser pocket, carefully retrieves the watch and slips it onto her wrist. She clips the clasp into position before ensuring her jacket's leather sleeve hides the bulky wristwear from view. Having mentally logged his niece's obsessive-compulsive behaviour, the duo finally head towards the car. Now more than ever, it is clear what an unlikely pairing they make. The portly Benjamin with his immaculately brill-creamed hair, beige linen trousers, pink silk socks, coffee-coloured loafers and dark blue blazer, all of which ensure Maggie's Dainese multicoloured leather biker jacket looks all the more of a rebellious choice.
Too old to be seen with me, Miss May? Too young, more like.
Benjamin chuckles.
All that looking about. Cramping your style, am I?
He walks around the car and opens the passenger door, then suddenly realises Maggie has backtracked.
Home again soon, Hardy. Don't go anywhere without me.
Maggie is up on her toes, looking back over her hedge and addressing the inanimate covered object, as if it were a sad-eyed Labrador. She takes a moment to note the decaying spray cans around the centrepiece. The variety of garish colours and rusting metal imbues the entire scene with more of the look of a modern art installation than a suburban frontage.
Those things are bleeding breeding.
A jet-black helicopter passes overhead. Maggie tracks its passage across the patchwork-clouded sky.
Chemtrails and cameras not enough. You got to send Black Ops copters too?
Noting her uncle's impatience, Maggie darts over to the car and, almost as acrobatically as Platypus's earlier performance, dives in, momentarily exposing a series of 8 black designs arranged in a circle near the base of her spine.
Hey there, ginger friend.
A distracted-looking Benjamin climbs in on the other side of the car.
Unc, I'm sensing this is no Sunday drive in the country. Could get gangster, right?
Maggie chuckles and untangles her silver-framed shades from her hair. With her eyewear soon worn in a more traditional manner, she looks to be transformed into a youthful rock star. Benjamin's only response is the burbling of the car back to life. He holds off a few seconds and then begins the task of a 7-point turn.
Hey, Unc, wait a minute. We might end up near a skate park. Feels like ages since I rode my GT. Can I fry it in the back?
Benjamin is still wrestling to see what seems like an ocean-going vessel facing the right way. Really? I suppose so. Don't take too long and no throwing. Benjamin brings the car to a halt, meaning it now blocks the entire road. Maggie jumps out and rushes towards the passageway next to her house. Seconds later she comes flying towards the car again, landing an unfeasibly large hop from the pavement. She pulls the boot open and places her gold steed inside. Eerily quickly she is back in the car. You appear to have a love for silver and gold. Didn't dirty anything of mine, I hope. Yet again Maggie kisses her teeth.
Relax, Unc. I know what you're like when it comes to your clothes, and especially your umbrellas. Don't tell me it's a priceless antique.
More valuable than any old. Seat belt, please, Miss May.